drainage warning, correct?
Okay, ready.
Call this drainage board meeting to order. Harry Crossley.
Present.
Tim Wilson present. Mr. Yup was not present. Jared Greer's here, County Council. Okay, thing on the agenda is Tim Yoakum asked for appeal to be here. No one that showed up was Mr. Morgan.
Yeah, Tim Yoakum asked whether I invite the town of Cayuga and the Morgans, but I'm not really sure why.
Town of Cayuga told Tim that he wants them to, he ought to come to their meeting.
That's what the board president told me.
Okay. Like I said, I don't know why.
I have no idea what he wanted to talk about. I assuming what Mr. Morgan done out there, you corrected your problem out there, didn't
He told me, or Amy sent me a letter and said if I had any questions, call him. So I called him and he said that his thing to me was, he said, well, I think I can get the town of Cayuga a grant to expand their capacity, and wanted me to come and explain what we did. Well, Tim, you know I've been talking about this for 15 years.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah.
Okay, so, we've had numerous,
Meeting.
site evaluations
Yeah.
and all this stuff over the years. We've been told to go through the soil and water conservation district. They've been out numerous times. They've done this, done that. So finally, it just keeps taking part of my field, because the water was not going directly into the pipe. So what I did was, I had on my property, and I had them come in, to put a new 8-inch pipe on mine with two risers up to the north end of it, to where it's coming off of Almy's farm into my riser, and he has a dike there to hold it back now to go into that riser. There's also water coming off of my pasture that is it's a spring in those hills, and I got a riser there. That water all comes down, but it's not just, I'm catching the spring water now and putting it in the right spot. The excess water that comes off the hills, water runs downhill to start with, and Cayuga is a lot further downhill than what I've got.
That water, spring water runs 24/7.
It runs 24/7, 365 days a year. That spring water, but I've got it going, and I've got an 8-inch tile from there, and it's draining it just at the west edge of town into your drain at the west edge of town. Okay?
That was a natural drain to start with.
That was a natural drain to start. That was there before I ever bought the ground.
It was there for anybody to build out there.
Yeah, okay. So now then, I reshaped the ditch at my own expense. I've reshaped the ditch all the way from town back out
To Mike Phelps's?
to Mike Phelps's house, just south of Mike Phelps's house. So it's probably a half a mile that I reshaped the ditch and put in a new 8-inch tile all the way down through there. And obviously I'm not putting any more water, I'm just directing it correctly, because it had taken 5 acres of my field and made a mess out of it. And what I don't want, if I don't want the town of Cayuga to shut it off, back a few years ago, whoever was in charge in the town decided that it would be a good idea to shut my drainage off at the west edge of town and just plug the end of the culvert and let all the water coming off of the hills go out onto my farmland. Okay, so that is not. Now, one thing I will tell you is not all the water that's coming down through there that needs to drain through town comes across me. There are some, like if you go back there towards like Tom Crowder's house and back in there, if you really look at the topography of the ground, it will come in, and that water coming from there will come, the natural direction of that, the surface water will come right towards Dale Warnick's house.
A lot of the ditches south of there are plugged up or not been opened. But what Tim was talking about at the corner of Curtis and Eugene Avenue Street there,
Right.
where he found that basketball plugged up,
Right.
he'd like to put a catch basin there where it could be cleaned out. That's what I want the town of Cuba to talk about a grant doing, but I don't know whether they'll go along with that or not, but it'd be a good idea, because it'd be easy maintenance on.
Anything
to help
I
it.
mean, and I've talked to the guys that took the basketball out,
Mhm.
you know, the employees for the town of Cuba, and they say that there's different over the years, there are different size tiles in there.
Yeah.
You know, there's some 10-inch, some 8-inch, some 12-inch, and none of them are even, you know, when they uncovered them, they said that they weren't even a bell tile, they were old clay tile, but they were
Yeah.
just butted against each other. And when you have just butted up tile, eventually it comes up.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, you know.
You think-
You know, several years ago, I tried to get along with the town.
They was gonna cut a ditch over State Highway, and they didn't proceed.
They wanted to do a lot of different things, but no, you know, after 15 years of waiting, I just got tired of waiting. So, and every year it just kept getting worse and worse in my fields. And so, what I did is I remedied my end of it, because I was waiting on the town to worry about, you know, to get that opened up, okay? After 15 years of waiting on the town, I was a little bit frustrated, to be blunt about it. And so, we spent our own money, did it. We got Brian Noggle to come in and do it, and he does a really good job.
It looks nice from what I seen, it looks pretty good.
I think it looks excellent, you know, but there again, if the town of Cuba decides to try to shut me off again, because they don't want water coming through the town, first of all, you can't stop the natural flow of water. And second of all, they're gonna blow me up again, what's gonna happen? And
See, that water come off the hill out there, it's a spring all the time anyway. Where Dale Warnick built, another house there, it's a natural drain. If you go up behind Albert Clark's house, you can see the natural drain, how it comes around there.
yeah.
And it come down through, went by the old grade school and into the pond all down there. But when the county pit, when they finished to make drought pit, they cut that ditch open and the water ends up the county pit there. And that's how it's run. But when he took the basketball out, the water began running, and basically a stream runs, there's not heavy rain, it'll run. It gives a heavy, it's just dry spell, don't run too much, but normally it runs every day.
It runs every day down
Yeah.
there at the
County garage, yeah.
down at the county garage, and that's where it ends up.
And if you get a heavy rain, it really comes in, but it was flooding Angie's, and Dale, of course, Dale Warnick's in a natural drain, but, and the tiles above the ground there.
But, you have to look at the topography of everything to the west edge of Cuba, and in all reality, you know, that riser that you're talking about, I'm sure would help, okay? But I'm not sure that's 100% of the problem of this whole, the scope of the work that needs to be done.
Yeah.
You know, as far as for me personally in our farm, we just need it to be able to take it.
Yeah.
You know, and like I say, all the time it runs, you know, and what was happening was, it was an open ditch out there, and when you back it up, of course, the silt stays there. So the silt kept coming up, and we dredged it a couple times, and it just silts in so bad. So then this time we put risers and put, I call them wascobs, I don't know how.
Well, the last heavy rain, the only place I seen water running was Dale Warnick's, and I thought it was running off his driveway into his yard. I didn't see where, Tim thought maybe a pipe broke. I didn't see where a pipe broke again, but I think just that heavy rain, and I didn't really see no really big flooding down there like they had.
And Brian Noggles swore that the last time we had a big rain, he went down there to look, and he said it was surface water coming in, just like what you're
Yeah.
talking about. He said it was surface water, there was nothing bubbling up.
Yeah.
From our end, you know, I mean, yeah, I would like to see it.
Well, what you guys
I
did.
would like to see an
Yeah.
outlet made there, because it would help the town of Cayuga.
Well, they clean that pipe to the west and clean it to the north end, you know, it's kind of a,
Yeah.
make sure they don't put a basketball back in there.
Right, I mean, and I'm not saying that, the basketball definitely made a big difference. Basketball blocking that up definitely made a big difference. However, like I say, when you have old tile like that,
Yeah.
like that is, it just does not always, eventually you have to replace it. And it's probably never been replaced in my lifetime. Probably not in anybody's lifetime that's sitting in this room, probably.
The only time anything been replaced is from where your property meets the town of Cayuga down to Eugene Avenue, that pipe's been replaced, that's the only one I know been replaced. To going north, I don't know if it's ever been replaced or not.
Yeah, I mean, I've never seen it north, I mean.
And basketballs really jam it up to win.
That was intentional, there's no doubt that was intentional.
That one we had out there at, Robertson subdivision, all the crawl spaces would get water in them, and have sump pumps. This guy had a big idea, he'd put a basketball in there and pump it up, he did. Stop the water from coming down past his house and everything. So we went out there, and the only thing we had to do is poke a hole in it and pull it out, and water just flew
Tim
out.
Gilpin did that one up there.
And it helps a lot most of the time, you know. And like I say, what we did was we reshaped it, and I would appreciate having it kept open for a drain through town so that it doesn't blow us back up again, you know. And I wasn't really sure what Tim wanted me here for the meeting for.
Maybe just explain, I don't know, maybe explain what you did, but, and you know yourself, Brian, the west end of town, that wasn't developed when that ditch was draining there, and these people started building, the road got raised up to start with, because it went two ways, the north and the south, and the south down past the brickyard, they still flood down there sometimes, heavy rain, there's no ditches off top of the, the ditches are filled in.
Right.
And then just, no one, now you can't build a floodplain, but no one's there to enforce that when Dale Warnick built, the other one that just happened.
It just happened, and then, you know, and I mean, all you have to do is stand on Dale's driveway. I mean, his driveway is actually a lot higher than
the
his
house.
front yard. I mean, he had to build up just to have a driveway there.
You walk out the driveway down to the house, you just,
Yeah, you're walking downhill to go into his house.
and see, that was in the county, then the town annexed that in.
So,
If you go out there, like I say, go there and look, you can really see how the water naturally drains if you go find Albert Park's house, if you know how the water should go, and then the town tried to change it, and it backs there and hang up.
well, you can look at it on I mean, we have computer capabilities that we do our tile with 3D on our computer, and it shows you exactly where that,
We had the same problem down there by Jim McLean's, there's a pond on the corner. The pond's filled in. The pond's not real deep, but it doesn't take much water, and it overflows and floods the road. We opened the ditch up a couple weeks ago, they had a broken tile there, the tenant boys opened that ditch up.
but you see, but that water runs in the same place,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it runs to the same place, and that's not even really very close to my property.
No, it's all the same water coming off the same hill out
But
there.
the water's coming off the same hill
Yeah.
into that. You know,
There's no houses down there, people complain, that's the
right,
big thing.
yeah, nobody's raising cane down
Yeah.
there because but. like
Any
I
other
say,
questions for Mr. Morgan?
The only thing I can say is, if it was raining and leaking, if you had a roof leaking and you was you would fix it.
Yeah,
In this instance, it's a major leak, but nobody's fixing it. You know, I mean, and so.
I done some working on that years ago, I was on the town board. Dick Falls got some engineering company, a grant on the pipes to tile that. Well, then, the other commissioner realized that was his area, he'd take care of it, and the pipes got donated to farmers for driveway whistles, and that project was never completed. That was a grant they got for that.
Okay,
That's been back in the 70s.
okay, that's long before I owned
Yeah,
it.
yeah. So it's been a problem for a long time, and they tried to, and he said, I just give up, you know, the other goes in my area, the commissioner, he'll take care of it, and the pipes got given away.
So, see, you knew more than I did
Yeah.
on that, you know, I mean,
I got on town board, the first thing they hit me with this drain out here.
yeah, and it still hasn't been fixed.
No, that's been 40
I mean,
years.
how many years ago?
40 years ago.
How many?
Probably close to 40.
40 years ago, you were on town board, okay?
Yeah.
So,
It's,
I said,
I
I've
inherited
been
it, still, it
I've
was
been
there
dealing
then.
with it for 15 at least, and
It's
you
never-
say you've dealt with it for 40. So, it's not a new problem.
No.
It's just,
Passed on, passed on.
it's passed on to too many times, and
Yeah.
I guess the buck stops somewhere.
Yeah.
And what I did, it made.
I think you helped the town of Cuba, what you did, from what I've seen, what they're
I
having
think I
around,
did
I
too.
think you helped, as long as you keep it cleaned out, and don't silt it again.
Well, it's not gonna silt in again, because a lot of the silt comes from those, the everyday
Yeah.
running of those
Streams.
streams, you know, those, and the springs, and I've got them not draining through the dredge ditch. I've got them draining through that 8-inch tile that I put, and it runs, I mean, you've probably seen where the outlet
Yeah.
comes in there, just west of that culvert, and it just runs right into the culvert all the time. The only time that it does, you know, when you get a big rain event, the surface water comes over the top,
Yeah.
but surface water don't come that many
Yeah.
days a year to give you all that extra silt. But the
Okay.
running 24/7, 365 days a year does give you a lot of silt.
Okay. Anything else?
Well, on your agenda, you had Horseshoe Lake,
Horseshoe Lake.
and you invited Eric.
Okay, Eric.
Here's a copy of our analysis of that issue there. I gave a copy of that to Jared and John. If you recall, there was a farmer, I don't know, does he own that or farm that ground to the?
Rippy just farms it.
Okay. There was an issue about the runoff and the water standing in that field, so we took a look at that, did a little research. It appears that they raised the outlet structure on that lake a few years back, and that has changed the elevation of the lake and changed the runoff patterns. But generally, the runoff patterns have always went that way, but there's a little more now than there was. There's some pictures that I've attached there. You can see there's, to the east, there is a culvert that goes under the road, so there has been a natural flow of water that direction. But there, the field that is kind of southeast of that intersection of those two county roads, 200 west, you can see the vegetation is distressed. You know, you can see the way the picture looks. Water has stood there and has stood there quite often. We talked with DNR, and basically, since this is not a public lake, and because it's not in a floodplain, floodway, they have no jurisdiction over it. And since the county does not have a drainage ordinance, there's no recourse for somebody doing what they've done with this lake to change the drainage pattern. So, in short, there's really nothing that the farmer or the adjoining landowner can really do to force them to change things, unfortunately. So, we had talked, probably been about a year ago, about a drainage ordinance for the county. And I had prepared one, I mentioned it to John. That would be a good thing to have to protect property owners in these types of instances, and also for new development. The one we had prepared was not overly restrictive. It's not like one you'd have in Hamilton County or, it was set up for rural county. I think it was modeled after one we did in White County. But that would protect owners, you know, if somebody changed the drainage pattern, then you've got a standard that they have to follow, then there would be a recourse. But since it's not regulated by DNR, there really is no recourse in this case.
I think Thousand Trails corrected the problem, because the last big rains we had, it never flooded the field, never come across the road.
Really?
They, from the Four Island Pond, the man-made pond, they fixed the drain. That's the one that was overflowing and coming and flooding our road and all other places. They corrected their drain, and it opened the drain up. Now it drains into the regular Horseshoe Lake Pond.
So it goes, so it has an overflow that goes the other direction,
Yeah.
to the southwest? Or?
Southwest, and I think it corrected the problem.
Okay, well, that's good. That's good. I would suggest you really consider the drainage ordinance. I can send a copy to John of what we had prepared, but that would protect people in this type of
Yeah.
instance.
Mr. Britton?
Isn't there common law in the state that you can't change water onto or coming off your properties onto other properties? Regardless of drainage ordinances or whether the state has jurisdiction or not?
John, you want to?
There is a body of law dealing with that, and we've got, there's a whole separate drainage statute that deals with whether or not something is a farm drain or a natural surface water course. But then you also run into the doctrine that water's a common enemy. In other words, you build your property up so that it drains onto my property. So then I build my property up so it drains onto your property. And I think what Eric's talking about is an ordinance that would put a little bit of structure to that.
Well, anyway, I think that without knowing the particulars about it, it sure does sound like the common law addresses those situations anyway. Not that it wouldn't take a legal action to take care of it, but I agree with you, drainage ordinances are, I'm surprised we don't have one. But in fact, I'm surprised we don't have utility ordinances, period, in this county.
I'm sure there's some case law for issues like this, but as far as having a state agency protect local issues,
Well, I agree.
that doesn't exist.
Unless it's over 20 acre feet in
Yeah.
size.
Yeah.
Or over a mile, if it's over a mile and square drainage either.
Well, that's when DNR would trigger their
Right,
involvement.
right. But I would urge that we get not only a drainage ordinance, but there needs to be a utility set up. I was over at Hillsdale the other day, and there was an issue with some drainage there. And those culverts are gone that are in there. They're half moons that used to be full culverts. I don't know if they were sized properly in the first place, but there's a lot of issues just in that town alone. And I think if you look out through the county, we'll find that we have a pretty good sized problem that's not being addressed, except whenever something fails or there's a complaint. That's about the only time it's addressed, it seems like. And looking at that particular situation, and there's also a head wall down there that's being eroded around, eventually it'll fail that road as well. But we have a lot of issues throughout the county, and if we don't start accumulating some monies to address these or address them as we can, I think we're going to be, our infrastructure is going to be stressed later on, or now actually. How does the county highways, or how does New Orleans take care of their drainage structures? Is it just, is there any inventory or anything like that taken of those? Do we know what we have?
We put the whistles in, right?
Yeah.
We keep record when we put the drain whistles in, Toss, and that, something I wanted to bring up at the, not really a place to bring it up, bring it to commission meeting. I think we ought to make a request to, when they build building permits, put in a driveway, run into a lot of places where we're fixing roads now, and people just filled the ditch in and made a driveway with us. We ought to require at least, I would say, an 8-inch tile or pipe for a drainage tile. A lot of people putting like a 4-inch pipe in there and it plugs up, or we got some.
8 inches is sufficient, but.
How many-
There's no driveway permits?
I told Penny they need to put that in their ordinance, that when they build a property, go across the ditch, they put in a pipe recommended by the county. We'll put it in, but they need to have a proper driveway pipe in there.
I believe we cover that in the drainage ordinance.
You could?
That if they put in a drainage structure for a private drive, that has to meet certain criteria and is approvable.
We
by
got
the
one
county.
road working on now, getting ready to resurface in our road plan, but we gotta fix the drainage first. People come out of Indianapolis or somewhere, they bought property to hunt on, they cut through the fence row and put the ditch in, no pipe, or they put a little big pipe in about like that. Well, that's just not gonna hold water, and it floods our roads.
I'll verify it, but I thought we covered that in that draft we put together. But that
There'll be a certain size, at least a certain size pipe needs to go in, whatever,
Yeah, I think it was a 12-inch.
That might be, I mean, sufficient, because anything's, well, like 8 inch, like you said, it's probably not big enough. I mean, just, people going down like the town of Cuba, oh, scrap piece of pipe for a water pipe, 4-inch pipe, but that's not working. It's just,
Well, the minimum size that the state highway requires is 24, and typically it's a minimum of 12.
12.
Any smaller than 12, you just.
Not for drainage.
12 that'll be just, we ought to recommend put in that ordinance. I
Well, it should be a
mean,
recommendation.
to the-
These are being put in on the county right away for the
Yeah.
most part.
they're making a driveway to their house. That'll be the first thing that's done for them to start building a house, have the proper driveway going in there.
And I'm aware of, I think we did an ordinance dealing with discharging gray water
Yep.
in ditches. And we did an ordinance that dealt with, we had one year when it seemed like every time they worked on a ditch, they were running into like a phone line or a fiber optic cable, and we did an ordinance dealing with that, but I don't think there's any sort of general ordinance that would cover everything.
Well, I would suggest that not only do we have a drainage ordinance, but we also have a stormwater utility ordinance. And you're gonna have something else coming up here soon with the solar farms or wind farms that are coming in. The use of our right of ways, there's no rhyme or reason to it. It's just basically you guys approve something and they do whatever they want, put these in. There's no organization to these utilities, and we're gonna have problems with that as we try to maintain ditches throughout the county. We're not gonna be able to go very deep because they're going down anywhere from just on the surface down to 4 feet. And we're just.
We have that problem with the phone company right now. We go maintain our ditches, I've argued
It's
them.
gonna get worse.
We tear their line down, pay for it, says Zuki information, put that line in our county right away.
Well, there's ways of being able to address those but we're behind the schedule here on that. But, anyway, I hate to see this being done piecemeal. I'd like to see it being a comprehensive outside, not being able to come to agreement, and maybe you have to do it piecemeal, but all these things are related to each other, and if you, I guess you can always change them. But it'd be nice to have a comprehensive plan for that, and so that everybody understands what they're doing and what
Yeah,
they're doing.
we got a road plan, trying to keep, I mean, you gotta have the drainage, water's gotta get off the road, but then people come in, they build a house, they fill the ditch in, and there's no place for the water to go, and
Yeah,
Right.
Can that be addressed when they buy the building permit?
that's what I was saying, they ought to have a,
I mean,
Yeah.
I think that would be something that could be addressed, if they're wanting to build a new house or something, and I think that ought to be, there ought to be specs when you have put on a building permit, that you have to have maintained.
We set up standards in Clinton that, there's drainage standards, but there's also a permitting process that if they're going to put an entrance off of a city street for a new house, there is a permit process they have to do and get approval for what they're.
Yeah, I mean, that should
Who
be.
administers that?
Huh?
Who administers that?
somebody at City Hall, I don't know if it's, I think it's the building inspector. I think is it Ken?
I think that's what I was gonna say, I think it's Ken.
And that's the first part, start.
Well, some of these problems that you're getting into is just no site plans available and.
Yeah, well,
it
I mean, blind ignorance, I don't mean, I'm not trying to be derogatory, but some people don't understand the importance of the drain in front of their house when they're doing it.
Drive West Curtis Street in Cuba, when they put the sewer system in, place I used to live was a drain underneath the road. They took all that, there's no ditches in Cuba. The water washing below the pavement all the time. They done away with the ditches.
Yeah, but I mean, that's,
There's no drainage there, there's no drainage.
you know, I'm high on drainage,
Yeah.
you know, I mean.
But anyway, you have a bridge plan, you
Yep.
have inspections that are required periodically, you have an outline of what you're gonna do with these bridges, what the conditions are. We have nothing like that to identify what our culverts are, drainage structures, any of our ditches. None of it's there. We have no idea what impact it has, we have no idea what financial impact it'll have. We're just floating along, hoping that somebody will take care of their own problem and not create another
When I
problem.
first got a commissioner, I got the bridge book, I drove my area looking, I didn't realize how many whistles and little culverts there was, and I give up, you couldn't count them all. And the farmers went opened up, and some of them had just been sealed with, there's no maintenance done to it, the problem. We got a ditch machine, and I got a ditch maintainer. If the right guy's on, it's fine, but you get one guy gets on a thing, he wants to go to China with it, and we got some drainage, some ditches opened up, we caused some problems, we got some ditches opened up with it.
Well, anyway, there's more than just a drainage ordinance that's needed.
Yeah. We do need that in the building code when they get a permit, you know.
When they build a subdivision, we got a subdivision ordinance with a certain size pipe, then so much.
Do we need to send a letter to the board, Jared, on the building,
Yeah, it would be helpful.
I mentioned to Penny, but I thought we ought to ask,
Discuss
maybe
that
ask,
with
could send it,
that
Penny, could you do that?
board.
Get a letter addressed to the drainage board at least a, 12-inch pipe, driveway tile?
The area plan.
Area plan, to the area plan, yeah.
I'm not sure the drainage board has any authority, hardly, so.
We can make a
Drainage board's
recommendation.
only for legal drains.
And we can make a recommendation, the drainage board of commissioners can say you do that.
Sure, you can make it, but as far as any authority goes, I don't think that.
Can we get an ordinance on that, John? or-
Yeah, well, I mean, you've got two commissioners, that if these two guys say create an ordinance, the drainage board may not have authority, but the board of
Yeah.
commissioners would have authority, so they can.
The recommendation
they
of
can
the
get it
drainage
done.
board, the commissioner want it, but the commissioner want it done, you know.
Mhm. You're gonna send me the.
Yeah, I'll send you a
ordinance?
draft and then, you know, we'll give some thought to any other best practices that might.
We ought to leave
be
that open so we
considered.
can add other things to it, like I said, you can want it on piecemeal, but something else we might be forgetting, and something needs to be added to that too.
We can at least get the process
Yeah.
started, get everybody talking.
Yeah, you can always amend it, supplement it. Okay.
Eric, thank you.
Thanks.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
I'll make it.
Now go to Clinton.